Hey folks, how you doing today? It's Thursday, May 8th, 2025. And here we are back again on the Chris Richman Show. Thanks for coming in. Welcome back to you. So let's get right to it. We have a couple of things I want to talk about first and foremost. We have a new pope, we meaning the Catholic Church, and anybody else too. Pope Leo XIV, Robert Francis Prevost, an American. I'm very, how do I put this? I am very nervous about this. And why do I say that? I say that because, one, I was kind of, I didn't really follow it, but I wasn't all that into who's going to be the next pope when Francis was elected. I was kind of surprised that Benedict stepped down, but again, given his health, it really wasn't all that surprising. But my initial thoughts on Francis were, okay, this guy's going to be pretty cool. He's not one of these people that goes out and, oh, I'm the pope, so I'm going to dress up in $40,000, vestments and blah, 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 all this other stuff. I should have figured it out right away that Francis was, in fact, a communist, a socialist, a progressive, if you will, not a follower of Christ. And I think that became very obvious very quickly during his papacy. So this fellow's an American, which in and of itself isn't, a big deal one way or the other. But he supposedly was a little bit in tune with Francis, which I suppose a lot of the cardinals right now are, given, many of them are put in place by either Benedict or Francis. Francis was around for over 10 years, so kind of makes sense. But I mean, his initial speech, which was done in Latin and Spanish, he gave a shout out to his old area in Peru that he had, which was kind of cool. But I'm a little concerned. The thing with having an American is the biggest. Let me put it this way: the biggest area where Catholicism is expanding right now is Africa. You had a cardinal that was a candidate for the papacy, Cardinal Robert Serra from Guinea, who African, obviously. And I think that would have been a great pick because he was very much traditionalist. He very much was, following in, he was a strict Bible, person. I think he would have been absolutely a follower of Christ and would have brought a lot of people to Christ. And again, and I hate to bring politics into this, but, Africa is a area where there's a lot of Muslim population. It could have been a great way to defend against Muslim encroachment and a way to get that kind of stamped down or tapped down a little bit. There's been a lot of people in the Middle East and whatnot who have converted to Christianity. They've been seeing, the Lord Jesus appear before them, from what I've been seeing. So I don't know. I'm cautious. Let's put it that way. I hope that the Pope will lead us into lead the church, rather us, the church, whatever you want to call it, but humanity in general, into a new age of coming to the Lord, coming to God, if you are that way. But I hope that He will grow the Christian faith. Like I said, I'm very, I don't know, I'm cautious about this. I have some concerns and some reservations. Let's put it that way. So we'll see. Anyway, Just wanted to mention that. It was done pretty quickly, too. I think 4 or 5 votes. So a day and a half, essentially, or 3 days, rather. So that's pretty quick. 3 or 4 days, I think it was. Very quick, actually. Maybe even not even that, a day and a half. But just super duper fast. Anywho, okay, let's move on. So University of Washington has really been pushing hard on this. In that they are this takeover that happened on May 5th. They've been pushing really hard on this. This is their latest statement put out about 16 hours ago. After the May 5th building takeover, 34 people were arrested and faced charges. 21 are students. Each has been suspended and banned from University of Washington campuses. UW condemns anti-Semitism and is taking concrete actions to improve the campus climate. So, suspended and banned from UW campuses. Okay. Notice they didn't say expelled. So, my guess is these people will be reinstated once the heat's off pretty quickly, if I'm right. Now, why you're thinking to yourself, whoa, what's going on here? This is a liberal university. Very liberal university, by the way. Why is it all of a sudden that they're doing this? Well, it's because they don't want the Trump administration to take and go after their endowment or their federal matching funds or whatever it is they call it. I'll get it later. UW is not Harvard. Okay, UW doesn't have billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in endowment. They can't. So they do rely somewhat on federal funds. And as a result, that's something they have to take into consideration. I have a feeling if this had happened during the Plugs administration, they would not be nearly as aggressive with this. In fact, I am about 99.9999 out to 100 places % sure they wouldn't have been this aggressive. Not even close. So again, we'll keep an eye on this, but I just have a feeling that once the fervor and the fury dies down, this will go away very quickly and those people will be reinstated, maybe even with an apology, although I highly doubt that. Okay. Brandy Cruz actually talked about this. She was retweeting something from Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Another horrific example of a dangerous protest that instills fear into students on campus. This is not free speech. This is destructive and unacceptable behavior. She's absolutely right. Free speech would be a peaceful protest. Free speech would be a protest that brings an issue to light but doesn't negatively impact people that are, not involved with the protest. And Brandy Cruz commented on this. The Education Secretary cares more about violence at UW than our own mayor and governor and attorney general. You should all be ashamed of yourselves, truly ashamed. Governor Bob Ferguson, AG Washington State, that's Nick Brown, by the way. And I don't know why that just came on. Sorry about that, guys, if you heard that. And then Mayor Seattle Bruce Harrell. Absolutely true. Absolutely 100% true. They haven't said squat. Not really. And that's pretty sad. That is, again, that's an example of where their focus and priorities are. 100%. All right. Let's see here. Talked about her yesterday. Okay. We'll come back to that stuff later about that. UW it's a ongoing thing, honestly. It really is. Let's see. Rosa DeLauro is in the news again. I really don't want to get into her too much because, frankly, she's a lunatic. But we'll go ahead and we'll play just a little bit. Sorry, I had to grab the pen there. Pen fell on the floor. We'll play a little bit of Rosa just because why not, right? Let's go ahead and play this real quick and get this over with.
By instilling a culture of fear and retaliation,
Kash Patel,
you're undermining the Bureau's employees and undermining the Bureau's ability to stave off terrorist attacks and keep violent criminals off of our streets. By instilling a culture of fear.
I'm sure you've done a lot of that in your time, Rosa. Your pink hair would honestly probably scare anybody, and those gigantic glasses you wear, those would scare a lot of people, just, you know, being completely transparent and honest here. Now, we weren't done, though, because the stupid comments about Kash continued. This is Madeline Dean, who is a Democrat from Pennsylvania's 4th District. She was an impeachment manager for the second Trump impeachment. So let's hear the back and forth between her and Kash. And frankly, honestly, I think Kash Patel handled this way better than I would have. Let's put it that way.
Agency. I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was.
Now, I love, stop the tape for just a second there. I love how I was an impeachment. So it's about her. Okay. Remember this. It's about her. Okay. I was an impeachment manager. Okay. She's putting out, you know, this is my bona fides. You know, I am important. So just remember that. Okay. Remember those words.
It's a sad, solemn duty. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Now, notice she's made it about herself twice now. When can I was an impeachment manager. When can I expect them at my door? When can I expect them? Just keep this in mind.
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
That. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book. So there are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people, and they were rightly called out. And you should give that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
I won't be doing that because it's not about me. So Kash threw that right back in her face. Really? You want to know who was in? Yeah, okay, it's about you. Okay. You want to know who actually got targeted by a weaponized FBI? Because she's saying that Kash is weaponizing the FBI. He goes, you want to know who got targeted? Me. I got targeted. And I can tell you and show it to you by in the book there. And she held up the book. She's the one that held it up, not Kash. She's the one that held up his book. He said, have you read the book? Basically. And of course she hasn't. And apparently I cannot hold on to this pen. Anyway, of course she hasn't. Why would she read a book that would actually, you know, enlighten her about issues and facts and would actually give her a different perspective than, you know, the one that is demanded by the New York Times and the mainstream media, and in the case of the Democrat Party, Barack Obama, who is the actual head of the Democrat Party, I would argue now, at least in D.C., you know, and Chucky Schumer, and in the case of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. You know, why would we actually read and understand something that would put their comments, the lie to their comments? That would make sense. So let's listen to this braying jackass preach to Kash Patel, who has more competence in one finger than this dippy woman has in probably her entire body.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6th insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers.
Not true. Not true. No Capitol police officers died on January 6th. No law enforcement officers at all died on January 6th. Complete lie. Proven lie, by the way.
And whom you referred to as political prisoners.
Yes, and notice how she got all, you know, how should we put it this? She got patronizing there. Political prisoners. What else could you call them, Madeline? You wonderful dunce. What else would you call them? If January 6th had been, let's say January 6th had occurred after Obama got elected, right? Or after Trump got elected, sorry. And it was Hillary Clinton supporters that had done this. They would be lionized as heroes. There might have been some arrests, especially with people who gotten frisky. But first of all, it never would have happened because there wouldn't have been right-wing people there. You know, the Proud Boys or whatever would not have come up and said, hey, let's get these people to go with us. We're going to have them go into the Capitol illegally. You wouldn't have had the Capitol Police going, hey, we're going to tear down these barriers and make people think that it's okay to come in there. Then we'll get them. You wouldn't have had that. Okay, you wouldn't have had police officers leading people through. And even if you did have them doing that, leading them through the Capitol, the prosecution would have never gone after them. Well, isn't it obvious? They were leading them through there, so there was no presumption of, or no indication that they were guilty. It's not possible my client could have believed it was an off-limit zone because, well, there's the police officers right there. They could have stopped them at any time, and they didn't. You see what I'm saying? That would have been argued. So this is absolute, utter BS by this woman. I don't see how you could ever say that the J6 prisoners, by and large, were not political prisoners. That's insane to me to even think that.
Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury.
Really?
At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier. Despite...
Okay. Anti-Semitic Holocaust denier. And here's the thing. When you are, let's get going on
the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is,
not to
should
recall.
we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your...
Okay, so again, this gal she's patronizing in the highest degree here. Memory or your veracity. I would trust Cash about 1,000% more than I would trust Madeline Dean. But let's go ahead and hear what Cash has to respond.
Lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts forward instead of lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second donation hit.
Bam. Hits it right on the nail head. I love this guy. I really do. You know, people are frustrated right now. Well, how come Cash said the first thing he was going to do when he got into the FBI deal was shut it all down? Why hasn't he done that? Now you see why. Now, do I think we need to be making more progress right away? Yeah, I do. But at the same time, when you've got clowns and idiots like this Madeline Dean woman, when you've got her running her mouth, and this is just one person. Now imagine you have 200, almost 200 of these people in the House. You have, 47 senators, 46 senators, whatever it is, doing the same thing. You have bureaucrats throughout the executive branch that you're having to deal with. I mean, really? Let me put it this way. If I were, and again, I'm not, but I mean, if I were Cash, I would come out and say, hey guys, here's the thing. It's worse than you thought. You thought it was this bad? It's this bad. I'm going to make progress. It's not going to be the next day like I thought. Sorry, but y'all need to be patient and there will be some stuff done. A lot of good stuff. And I will update you as it happens. If I don't, Dan will. Speaking of Dan Bongino. Okay. So yeah, he nailed her to the wall. So let's see what Madeline Dean responds with.
The answer is both. I believe that
the answer is you're failing, not me.
Reclaim my time.
True.
Go ahead.
Reclaim my time. Oh, you want to talk about something that drives me nuts? I'm reclaiming my time. When politicians say, reclaiming my time, when they ask a question, when you ask a question of someone testifying, okay, and you ask a question and they answer, and let's say that, well, it's a simple yes and no, because there was somebody yesterday, I'm trying to remember who it was, that was testifying. Well, it's a simple yes or no. And the person that asked the question, it was made to be a perjury trap. Okay. That's one thing that, I mean, on both sides of the aisle here. When you ask a simple yes or no question, It needs to be something that is simple. So asking, well, should we worry about your, or not that, why did you say, or did you ever know this person? And if you say no, then they can go back and like she was trying to do there. Well, but you talked with them 8 times. How did you not know them? You lied to me. So if you say, I don't recall, then you can come back and say, oh yeah, you know what? I did run into this person. I wouldn't say I knew them. My recollection is they were just kind of somebody I saw. Okay. Now, if it's, hey, do you support pedophilia? Or like in the case of Justice Jackson, do you know the or can you define a woman for me? And she says no. That's when I have serious concerns. But or like if they were asking, say, a nominee for HHS, right? If they had asked Bobby Kennedy, do you support pedophilia? That's a yes or no question. No, I don't. Of course, I don't support pedophilia. That's insane. Why would anybody support that? Well, but like they could ask a person in the California Assembly this. Do you support pedophilia? No. Okay, great. So then walk me through why, this is where you get into the whataboutisms or, well, why is this then? Why did you support lowering the age of consent to 16 or 14 or 13 or whatever it is? I mean, there are questions and then there's like he pointed out, then there's donation hits. So now she's waiting for some reason.
Mr. Patel, I believe that the members of the FBI, and I know many of them, many retired, 38,000 people, as you say, it's a little less than that now, deserve the very best, deserve extraordinary independence, deserve freedom from the fears of being investigated, the freedom of coming forward to make sure they're doing
their jobs.
Their job.
Okay, so I agree. If I were Cash, I would have said, yep, I agree. That hasn't been there until now. Because every time an FBI whistleblower came forward during the Obama administration or during the Plugs administration or even during Clinton, they were mocked, laughed at, made fun of, impugned. Their lives were destroyed. There was Oppo research done to the nth degree about them. Conversely, when someone came forward during the Bush or Trump administrations, both, by the way, they're lionized, they are supported, even when the simplest of checks reveals, oh, well, this person isn't necessarily on the up and up. They're kind of out there a little bit. Okay? That's one thing. If you find something and they are not credible because, well, they say this, but at the same time they did this, or they voted for, they spent or came out and were active politically for or against this candidate, something like that, where it's obvious that what they're doing is political, that's fine. If it's someone coming out and saying, hey, we've been weaponized against journalists. I have emails that can prove it. I have, these that were saying target only people who support Trump, blah, 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 blah. That's a whole different thing. And the same thing, if it was target only people that support Obama, I would have a real problem with that. So it's, I just, like I said, Cash dealt with that a whole lot better than me, but I think he did a very good job of it, especially with that 20-second donation hit comment. That was just brilliant. Put her back on her ankles, totally, or on her heels, rather. Great job. I hope that he continues to stand up to these clowns. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, we're going to take a brief music break, and then we will be back, and we'll go through some more stuff here. Some of it is pretty scary. All right, so we'll be right back. All right, so we're back. This is the Chris Richman Show, segment 1 for Thursday, May 8th, 2025. So let's, I want to go back to one thing real quick, if I could, on UW here. Ari Hoffman posted this. Developing, Hamasniks are upset their terrorist buddies were arrested, charged, and suspended for causing over $1 million in damage to a UW engineering building during a violent anti-Semitic protest. So the same suspended student group is organizing a, quote, protest for tomorrow. And he puts up this playbill that says, call to rally. UW suspends students. Hands off students. Drop the charges. Thursday, Gerberding Hall, 1 p.m. So that's in about an hour and a half, give or take. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep an eye on this. I don't know that I will be able to really do much about it in terms of reporting on it, but I wonder what will happen here. I have a sneaking suspicion that it will probably be a bunch of Antifa types, probably most of them masked just to conceal their identities, because they're so courageous. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. I don't know. I have an uncomfortable feeling that it's probably going to get a little bit feisty, shall we say? We'll see. All right. Let's go and get to our daily segment of
Stupid Libs.
That's right. Stupid Libs. This is, of course, our segment illustrating and talking about liberal stupidity. And boy, do we have some today. Oh, my goodness. The first person on the ballot is not necessarily liberal per se, because they are a Republican. But, of course, that doesn't matter because in the case of rhinos, they actually are libs. President Trump has removed Ed Martin as the nominee for D.C. District Attorney for D.C. That type of thing. Or U.S. Attorney, rather. And this was because largely due to Tom Tillis saying that he would not support Mr. Martin. So my goal for this next cycle, because Tillis runs again in 26, my goal, if I were the Republican National Committee, if I were President Trump especially, would be to make sure that Mr. Tillis doesn't get out of the primaries, that he gets primaried very, very quickly because, well, he just threw one of the presidents, the head of the Republican Party, threw one of their nominees under the bus. Now, again, we expect this from Democrats. We expect, opposition. That's fine. They're the opposing party. But Tillis is doing this strictly for political gain, not because he actually opposes Martin. So, again, God willing, Tommy Boy will be primaried out, and we will finally get rid of him, because that would be wonderful. All right, let's go next into an absolute lunatic. Well, let me put it this way. This gal is a complete lunatic. This is from Libercrat, which is on X, and then reposted by anti-left memes. This woman is the very model of stupidity. She appears to be in her maybe teens or early 20s, and is in her car while she records this. Probably has the phone on the steering wheel, judging by the angle. I don't know. But let's listen to this roughly 1 minute and 15-second rant of insanity, shall we? Because wow, just wow.
When the Founding Fathers made this great country, I'm going to stop you right there. The Founding Fathers owned slaves. The Founding Fathers had less access to education than a modern-day 12-year-old.
And yet they were still smarter than you, ma'am. Case in point, and we'll keep playing this. I just wanted to pause it there. They owned slaves. Yes, yeah, some of them did. Absolutely they did. I'm curious, though. Outside of Andrew Jackson, who was not a founding father, but outside of, how many of the founding fathers were abusive towards their slaves? How many of the slaves, the founding fathers that owned slaves, either paid them, so they weren't actually slaves per se in terms of indentured servitude? They actually paid them. But again, how many were horrible? And here's the other part of that. in certain areas of the country, you could not have a farm. Because your prices for your product would be too high if you didn't have slaves. Now, am I defending it? No, not at all. Slavery is horrible, and I'm very glad it's gone. But again, that part, yes, we know, we understand. We've all discussed this. It was one of the great problems with the original Constitution is that they couldn't get rid of the slavery thing. And the best they could do, unfortunately, was the 3/5 compromise. Now, as to education, I would think if you went and you looked at the abilities and raw intellect of anybody from the 1700s, especially the Founding Fathers, if you looked at them and compared them to the common sense and intelligence of today's world, and you asked people basic common questions, I would think you would find that the folks from the 18th century were vastly more intelligent than we are today. For example, yes, they didn't have cell phones. However, they could actually write a story or write a letter in a fashion, assuming, they could read, of course, but even if they couldn't, they could enunciate and articulate their words in a far more cogent and organized fashion than most people can today. This woman, case in point. The ones that could write and the ones that could read spent their time with a classic liberal education. I don't mean liberal as in like what we call liberal today. They were in liberal arts, meaning they understood and read people like, for example, Plato. Okay, they read the classics. Shakespeare. They could quote Shakespeare to you, probably. Okay, even if they couldn't do that, they could talk to you about freedom and liberty, and they could quote it, and they could tell you about it, and they could enunciate why they were for it. They could tell you, even the ones that supported the crown could tell you why they favored the crown, again, in an organized and cogent fashion. This woman can't do any of that. Yes, she has a cell phone. Yes, she benefits from modern technology that allows her to post her thoughts on a platform which can reach billions. Understood. However, I would like to see this woman write a dissertation on the effects of capitalism and or democracy, take your pick, republicanism, socialism, or anything like that. I would love to see her do an essay on her preferred form of government and why it is superior to any other form of government. Frankly, I don't think she could do that. I would highly doubt that she could do that. Let's listen to more, shall we? Just because, we're being masochistic here, apparently.
I don't know anything. I don't care what they wanted. I don't care what they think. It's unconstitutional. I should hope so. The Constitution was written by people who didn't think women should vote. The Constitution was written by people who had 15-year-old wives dying in...
Okay. Again, the separation of male and female up until recent times was, it was due to, how do we put this, a moderation of attitude. There was a belief for a very long time that females, especially during their menstrual cycles, would become illogical. Now, of course, we've seen that that's not necessarily true. But again, that was the belief at the time. So, okay, that's fine. We've seen it now. But you're not helping yourself, ma'am, when you are running a rant like this.
Childbirth, frequently. The Constitution was written by people who had little cartoon Elmer Fudd shotguns, not automatic war machines capable of ripping down 100 children in a minute, and have, and will again. The whole...
Cartoon shotguns. I wonder, has this woman ever seen what a mini ball can do to a human body? I'm just curious. Has she ever seen what a 45 or 50 caliber musket ball will do to the human body? Has she ever seen that? Versus, for example, and has she ever seen how wars were fought back in the day, where, back in the day, meaning the 1700s and before, and even into the 1800s. you'd basically line up in skirmish lines and shoot at each other from what, 25 meters? I mean, and again, you're firing cannons. You are killing massive amounts of people that's because that's how it was done. There wasn't this surgical precision strike where you could drop something from 10,000 feet up using an unmanned vehicle and take out your target without killing anybody around them. But please continue.
The whole point is to change. The whole point is to progressively make better decisions so we do not repeat the atrocities of our ancestors.
Okay, on that, I will not necessarily disagree with you. I would say not, instead of atrocities, I would say mistakes. But yeah, there are some atrocities in there, so I don't disagree totally on that. However, you are mistaking technological change for actual change for the betterment of humanity. So that's one area where this gal fails miserably. Let's keep going, though.
If I was born at any other time in American history, I would have been burned at the stake or lobotomized.
So are you saying that you're insane or a witch? Which, honestly, the insanity part, probably not far off the truth. As for the witch part, I don't know. Is she a practicing witch? Because maybe, I don't know, maybe this gal's a little bit, maybe she's out there doing the voodoo or something. I don't know.
I think the people doing that are the ones who know what should be going on today.
Yes.
We don't want to listen to the people who cured tuberculosis or decided, hey, maybe we shouldn't put lead in house paint.
Okay, so here again, this woman is confusing technological advancement with betterment of humanity. They are not necessarily connected. Okay? I will argue that the fact that she is doing this and the fact that I'm betting if you took this gal's phone away from her, she would go absolutely insane within a very short amount of time. Probably less than a day. Probably less than an hour, to be honest. And we've seen that. We've seen people, men and women of this age, who go absolutely back guano crazy when they don't have their cell phones. There's actually, I can't remember the name of it. No, Menafeni or something like that. I don't know. There's actually a medical condition about losing your cell phone or about not having your cell phone. I'm not joking. Yeah, it's kind of scary, to be honest with you. This woman, if she couldn't access her social media feeds, post to X or Instagram or Facebook, if she couldn't do that, she wouldn't know what to do with herself. I mean, I would love to see this person try and have a civilized argument with someone. I don't think she could. I really don't. I don't think she could walk up to me, for example, me being a younger middle-aged man. I don't know that she could walk up to someone like me and carry on a respectful, but, maybe a respectful disagreement. I don't think she could do it. I think it would devolve into name calling and insults in under 30 seconds. Guaranteed. I do. I really do.
You are actively repeating the atrocities of your ancestors. You're doing it on purpose.
And then she just actively repeating the atrocities of our ancestors. Okay, so where are you getting that from? Give me an example. Give me an example that's not technologically related. For example, are you speaking of the fact that a group of people right now is trying very, very hard to eliminate the views of the other half? And she would say, well, Trump. I'm not talking about Trump. No, I'm actually talking about the media, the liberal media. They're doing everything they can to cover up, laugh, mock, make fun of, impugn, whatever you want to call it, anybody who doesn't disagree or doesn't agree with them. And the same thing with politicians, liberal politicians. It happens all the time. Again, I don't think this woman would survive. You could throw her back 200 years from now, or 200 years in the past. So that's what, 1825. She wouldn't last 2 seconds. She's white, and she wouldn't last 2 seconds. You throw her back 300 years ago, 1725, or 200, even 250 years ago, 1775, right? Right around the time of the Revolution. She'd be screwed. She wouldn't last 5 seconds. And if she did, she'd be an absolute wreck. She wouldn't be able to adapt. Conversely, you bring someone like Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, any of these people, you bring them forward to today, and yeah, there would be an adjustment, no question. They would have to get used to the technology we have. Other than that, they'd be appalled, one, at where we've gone, how we've gotten there. But they'd be fine. They would live. They would do fairly well because they understood the basics of life. They understood the basics of human interaction. They understood the ability to, even Patrick Henry, who was extremely, how shall we say, upfront with his views. Even he would be fine, I think. But not this gal. She'd be done. No doubt about it. Completely finished. All right, so that was number 2 on our Stupid Libs list. Next up, we have Joe Scarborough and AOC. So these are two people who are, I honestly don't know which one's dumber. I'd probably say AOC because Scarborough at least, well, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I was going to say Scarborough at least, was a Republican at one point, a conservative. But he was dumb enough to go away from that. And then AOC, you could, if you argue her, well, she was an actress. Or, basically is an actress. Okay, she hasn't really deviated from her viewpoints, though. So I don't know. I don't know who's dumber. I really don't. But let's hear what let's see what Joe had to say. And again, this was posted up on X by Wake Up America. Breaking, Joe Scarborough says AOC is, quote, one of the most articulate, exciting people in the Democrat field, unquote. What is your reaction? Articulate and exciting. I don't know that I would say articulate, simply because AOC, like many liberals, and honestly a lot of the politicians in general, she can't just go out and say something off the cuff and have it be, one, cogent, and two, and I use cogent a lot today, but it makes sense, be one, cogent, and two, how shall we put it, an accurate articulation of her beliefs. And I haven't seen her do that. Everything she does, she's reading off of a script, right? Everything. So that said, I don't think the articulate thing really applies. Now, again, I say that about a lot of the Democrats. As for exciting, yeah, admittedly, she does have a following. So in that part, you may be correct. By the way, if you're hearing plane noises, there's a crop duster running around outside, I guess. But I don't know that she's got the base going. And I don't know that she's got the party going. Remember, the Democrats have a swamp too. Just like the Republicans do. You have a mainstream group that really is, and maybe not in D.C., okay? Maybe in D.C. she is kind of the cat's meow. But you get out into real America, so into the more liberal parts of, say, or the more Democrat parts of, say, Georgia and Tennessee, even in say Montana, okay, the more Democrat parts there. Yeah, you'll have people that are okay with AOC because, well, she's a liberal, but they look at someone like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone who actually has someone on the bench there. They look at someone more like Bernie Sanders or even, Hillary Clinton, and that's kind of what they look at. Now, those two people are both very left wing, but let me put it this way. You still know that it's their belief. With AOC, you have to wonder, okay, is this actually what she thinks? Or is this the thing that her handlers thought, okay, this will get you the most points? I don't know. So, yeah, I wonder what Joe's opinion would be on Jasmine Crockett. Interesting. All right, let's take another quick music break here, and we'll come back and we'll go on to the next little bit here. Actually, one more stupid lib. Sorry, guys, one more. And this is actually relating to the papacy. A bunch of feminists, and I don't know where this is from. I really don't. Frankly, I don't care. Let pink smoke and said they should have a say in electing the next pope. Okay, but you're probably not Catholic, I'm guessing. So why would we have you part of the conclave? And the Vatican's the rules in the Catholic Church are very clear. It's a conclave of cardinals. Sorry, that's the way it is. Let's hear what they have to say, though.
A male-only conclave is a celebration of patriarchy. A Catholic Church without women has never existed and never will. Smoke out sexism! Smoke out sexism!
Smoke out sexism. So they have their slogan. Notice they said a Catholic Church, which tells you right there they are not Catholics. In my thinking, otherwise they would have said the Catholic Church has never existed. Our Catholic Church has never existed without women. Blah blah blah. No, they said a Catholic Church. Words have meaning, folks, and the way you use them tells people a lot about you. All right, so let's go and take a second music break here, and we will be right back. All right, back on the Chris Richman Show. This is, again, segment 1 for Thursday, May 8th, 2025. All right. Oh, man. James O'Keefe, OMG Media here, founded Project Veritas, that kind of thing. He has done it again. He has had a source inside the royal family who... he was a royal advisor, apparently, who confirmed to an undercover camera that indeed Prince Andrew did, in fact, engage in sexual acts with underage girls. And this was not unknown. And it's funny that now that Virginia Giuffre, or however she pronounces her name, Goffrey, whatever, is dead, apparently by suicide. And again, I believe that about as much as Epstein committing suicide. Or Chris Cornell or Chester Bennington, by the way. I don't think they committed suicide either, but that's a whole topic for a different day. Anyway, it's sad to me that O'Keefe now, with this undercover footage, O'Keefe has done more to expose the evils and the people connected to Jeffrey Epstein than our own Attorney General and Justice Department has done. Now, if you listen, we talked about this yesterday. If you listen to Pam Bondi, it's they're going over. The people are going over it. Now, you could say, well, okay, what are they doing? Well, they're removing faces, referencing things or references to people's identity, that sort of thing. For the victims. And again, I won't rehash this, but basically that's a pretty weak excuse to me. But it's funny, again, that, O'Keefe has done more to out these people than our own DOJ has. That needs to end. Pam Bondi, I know I am just a little tiny person in the middle of nowhere here. But it needs to be fixed. Pam Bondi, you need to take the lead on this stuff. We need to get these names out there. I don't care who they are. If it's John Roberts, get it out there. If it's, which I'm pretty sure John Roberts is on there some way. If it is Democrats, if it's Republicans, if it's, council members, if it's senators, if it's Congress people, if it's whatever, I don't care. If they are on there, if they were involved in the Lolita Express, for example, it needs to come out 100%. And those people need to be held to account. I don't care who it hits. I don't care how much damage it does to our so-called, quote, government. If we want to have a believable, honest-to-God government, this needs to happen. Now, I mentioned this first before going into this next story for a reason. One of the people who is, how shall I put this, very tied to Jeffrey Epstein, and it's been documented, is Bill Gates. Well, isn't it interesting that today, Bill Gates announced that he's going to give away nearly all of his $200 billion fortune. He's only going to leave 1%. Now, before you get sad about that, just remember that 1% of 200 is still 2. So he's still going to have $2 billion. So I can't feel too bad for Bill when he has $2 billion still to his name. And I'm wondering, what is this going to be liquid, funds that he's giving away, and in other words, easily convertible cash, or is it going to be what's the 2% or the 1% rather he's going to keep for himself? So let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and play this, and we will hear Bill Gates's comments ourselves. And by the way, this was this was posted by Dom Lucree, one of my favorite people on X. Let's hear this.
The decision is in a sense kind of a personal thing that I think over the next 20 years, this amazing organization with amazing
Bill
partnerships,
Gates Foundation.
I want to maximize what they can do, and I have no doubt there will be rich people in the future. Even today there's many people richer than I am, and they will understand.
Humble brag.
21 years from now, what's gone on with AI and geopolitics, which diseases remain, and I think we can get the majority of our goals, done in the next 20 years by doubling down with this spend down approach.
Okay. So he's talking about a 20-year span. I don't know about you, that makes my skin crawl. He wants the majority of his goals can be reached in 20 years. What goals, Bill? What are you talking about? What are you talking about there? Because Bill Gates is involved in some pretty messed up stuff. He is a transhumanist. He is how do I put this? He's an elitist in that he wants to make it so that you and I have nothing and we'll be happy for it. We'll be happy to have nothing. That'll be fine. We won't care. But by God, he will. Again, he gives away 99% of his wealth, and he's still got $2 billion. Are we supposed to applaud that? And again, where is he giving it? He's shutting down the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He also, this wasn't on the video. Apparently, he's claiming that Elon Musk is killing the world's poorest children. Really? Let me ask you, Bill. Does access to modern technology harm or hurt people? Now, that's kind of a loaded question in that, and it's also kind of a way you can answer both ways on that. You could say, yes, it harms them in that it makes them lazy. And I'm saying that in the nicest possible way. Look at the United States. Oh, that poor person. They don't even have a phone. Okay. Let's go to any person in, say, for example, I don't know, Guinea, or even down in Mexico City. Again, we talked about that. You don't get to live on unemployment or Social Security or other kinds of government assistance down in Mexico. If you are not out hustling and getting some work done and, running your little shop or whatnot, you're not living. Pure and simple. But looking at it from the other side of the coin, now I can, if I have access, if I am, say, in the middle of Africa, okay, and I have no connection to the outside world other than, the trucks that come through with, or if I get on a bus, maybe I make crafts, okay, in Mexico, in Africa, wherever. And because Elon Musk put Starlink up and put it at a price that I can actually afford, or that my maybe somebody can give me access to, I can sell my crafts. And you know what? Weirdly enough, I can sell them through the entire world. Maybe I have a great idea. And maybe I can get in touch with someone now using this technology, the internet, whatever you want to call, or whatever technology it is. Maybe now I can get in touch with someone and I can develop that idea, patent it, that kind of thing. And now my idea that I had can make me money. Maybe I can, maybe I'm really good at sports, okay, at football, world football, meaning soccer. And because somebody in my village has a cell phone and has access to internet, again, because of, say, Starlink, they can take a video of me playing football and they can post it up to, the internet, either Instagram or whatever have you, X, it doesn't matter. Or just email it. And somehow that video might get in touch of a recruiter for a larger football team in a larger city. And pretty soon my career progresses. You see where I'm going with this, right? And while it can be definitely argued that Bill Gates is a major player in that, there's also things Bill Gates has done that have been very worrisome. Again, he is very much I'll get mine, but you'll be happy with nothing. He was very involved with the coronavirus thing, Project 21, that sort of thing. So, and then of course, like I said, there's the Jeffrey Epstein link. I'm coming to that. I know you guys kind of thought maybe I lost that thread. I didn't. You have to wonder about the timing. Okay. The DOJ has supposedly all these Epstein files. Project Veritas just released all these, or this thing, basically, in essence, incriminating Prince Andrew. How long is it before someone comes forward and gets Bill Gates? Talks about him. And what if, as part of that, Bill Gates gets sued for a lot of money? Now, again, supposedly he's giving away 99% of his wealth. But is he giving it away, or is he giving it, and I'm using air quotes here, giving it away? I would say it's the latter, honestly. I would. There's no way you're going to be able to track $198 billion. Not accurately. So maybe this giving away, and again, using the air quotes, is, oh, you know, that money you were going to sue me for, I don't have it anymore. It's not mine. I gave it away. He'll have access to all of it. If he needs money, he will get it. It just won't be in his name. Guaranteed. So I question the timing of this. I think Bill knows something's coming. I do. I think he knows something's coming. I think this is done to make him look good in the public eye. And I think whatever's coming has him very, very worried. You don't do something like this if you're confident. You don't do something like this if you're not trying to get out ahead and make yourself look good so that people will doubt what they're about to hear. No, something else is going on. And it'll be very interesting to see what it is. All right, folks, this has been the first segment of the Chris Richman Show for, again, Thursday, May 8th, 2025. We'll see you on the second segment. Sorry about not having a second segment yesterday. A project I was working on around the house ended up taking a lot longer than I expected it to. In fact, it's still going on. So I wasn't trying to crap out on you guys on that one. Something came up, and like I said, it demanded my immediate attention. So hopefully we'll get the second segment in today, and maybe even the third. I doubt that, but we'll try. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll see you on the second segment, and talk to you then.